Hello everyone, and before I start the tutorial I just wanted to mention I have started my own movie review channel. Okay, so I'm going to put a link to it in the description, so go and subscribe to it so you also get to see my face, okay, which I'm guessing no one has seen. So I'm basically reviewing just random movies that I've been watching. So right now I'm just reviewing like Godzilla movies, but yeah, I'll review other stuff as well. Okay, so go subscribe to that and we'll get back to the tutorial. Okay, so the purpose of this tutorial was I was on Facebook and someone sort of asked a question of how do you randomly rotate objects that you've copied, and I figured, okay, I can make a tutorial on the various sort of scattering tools that you get and how to control copies using attributes and stuff. So, but the idea here is to try and not get into Vex because there are tools available that will let you do it without having to do like a wrangle swap. So it's your choice what you want to do, but this is just like, an option. Okay, so what I have here is I just have a simple box and I used a match size to sort of put it on the grid. Okay, so I'll start off with a simple grid. Let me just duplicate this and I'll get rid of all of this stuff. Okay, and what we'll do is, before we start, is I'm just going to give this some normals. Okay, so just take a normal node, set this to points, and that's it. So you'll have like normals. And then to do like simple copy and to do like simple scattering, we can use a scatter and align tool. So you can just plug this in and put that into copy to points. And that's pretty much it. So this is pretty straightforward. Okay, now what it does is it gives you a whole bunch of options. Like you can distribute by size, which means that you can, as you lower the uniform scale, you'll get more copies. And you can also do like a minimum maximum radius. So you'll get like a little bit of randomization. You can also distribute by density. So you can just increase density and you get more points. Now, if the scattering is a little random, you can come to point generation and you have like a relax value. So if you increase that, you can just, have them distribute better. So as we increase the distribution, it'll be a little more better than what it was before. Okay. And we can also increase the coverage to 1. Yeah, see, so there you go. So that gives you like a better result. Okay. And then you can also do like by point spacing and by number of points. Okay, so you can sort of define, like, let's say if you just want 500 points, so we can have 500 points. Okay, now the good thing about using this over like the standard scatter tool is that it has rotation values inbuilt. Okay, so you can do like random rotation. Okay, you can do minimum maximum angle, which is great. You can also do multiples. So if you just wanted to rotate at, let's say 45 degrees, so I can do like 45. So now you're getting rotations which are like multiples of 45. Okay, so it's better. And then you can also do like a full offset angle. So if you just want to rotate everything, you can do that. Okay, now the other thing that is nice here is you can also scale these by attribute. So if I get this to 0 and we'll just create an attribute. So just take a float. So take an attribute at just float before the scatter and align, and we'll call it let's call it offset angle, and I'll come to scatter and align, I'll pick up offset angle, and then we'll set this to always. And now like I'll give this a value, and as I increase this, you'll see like it's using this value to rotate. But now you can do interesting things, like I can make it random. So now it's sort of like, doing multiples of this. So without using this random value over here, you can, use this one. But the good thing about this is that if I set it to noise, then you get like more of a noise pattern, which means I can adjust this. See, so you get like, more interesting rotation patterns, and this can also be animated, So if I come here, I'll turn off fractal and I'll just turn on animate. And if I press play, see, so you can like, I'll just lower this. See, so you can actually like animate the whole thing. Okay. And the same thing can be fed into like random rotation as well. So if I come in here and do scale by attribute, and yeah, pick up offset angle. See, so now you can also like, do this. So you can do stuff like this. Now, the advantage of this is that you can also, like, if I apply like a mountain sop or something over here, so it'll follow that as well. So if I put in like a mountain node in the middle over here, and I'll just come into this, and what I'll do is make the scale bigger, increase the amplitude, and like let's lower the roughness. So see, it's now following this. So the normals actually help, because if without that it sort of gets a little wonky. With the normals it's a little better, and then you can also have this whole thing animate. Now here is the interesting thing about this. Like, this is scattering like random points, but what if you want to copy onto the grid points itself, and this should have random rotation or random scaling? So what I can do is, after the normal, I can take an add node. Now the normals are important here. So what I'll do is I'll take an add node and get rid of the geometry after the normals. So now we have points, but they have normals. And then I'm going to plug this into the second input of my scatter align, and then come into scatter align and set this to add attributes to existing points. So now what's happening is that it is, if I set this to scale, see, so now it is copying, it's applying all of these random values, but to the existing points of the grid. So now I can, so if you want to do like uniform distribution, like, a grid shape distribution, then you can get that, and you can add like random rotation and all of that stuff through the scatter and align. Now the normals are important, because if I turn off the normals, just having the add doesn't, it doesn't know how to align everything. So if you turn this off, see, everything just goes away. So you have to make sure that after you have made your geometry and everything, apply normals to it, and then just get rid of the geometry altogether and just keep the points. So then it will be able to do all of its stuff on that. Okay, so what it does is it generates like it generates all the attributes for you. Like, it generates p scale, it generates orient. You don't need to do any of that over here. Okay, so you can just, do all of that and get the result that you want. Okay, so this is as far as scatter and align is concerned. Like, we can also do this with, let's say if I take like test rubber toy, and we'll do a boolean. So we'll do boolean union, yeah, and I'll just do a remesh. Let me get rid of the shader. Yeah, so I'll just lower the remesh. I'll increase the iterations. Yeah, and I can then just plug this whole thing over here, and so you'll get this. So if I just take the scale value and make it smaller still, like let's keep this to 1 and 1. Let's make this 0.05. Yeah, there you go. So you're getting this. So yeah, so you can do like random rotation and everything onto this without having to generate, any of the orient attributes and stuff like that. Okay, now the other option is how to scatter along a curve. Okay, so I have this curve here. Let me just duplicate this. So I just have this simple curve over here. So the simplest way to do this is, let me just get rid of that. Yeah, is you get something called as orientation along curve. And I can take, let's do a copy to points. And we plug this in, and that's what we get. Now it's upside down. So what you can do is you come into orientation and take the roll value, and we'll make it like 180. Okay, so you can do this. Then you have other options, like you can twist it, and you can twist it in different axes. So I can just take this and spin it around. I can give it like additional values. Okay. Okay, so this is fine. Okay. Now, in order to apply like scaling and stuff to this, I can take a float value and I can do attributed just float, and this is by default set to p scale, which is good. Like it will generate the attribute up there, and we can set this to always, and we can do random. See, so we'll get like, random, or you can set it to noise. You can also remap attributes if you have like, let's say if we come to resample and I'll turn on curve view. So what I can do is I can come in here and do remap attribute and set it to curve view, and there you go. So it will scale down, as it goes along, and then we can, add more stuff to it. So if let's say on top of this, I want to randomize it further, then I can, add noise to that, or we could sort of multiply it with that, or, like whatever you want. Yeah, so you can get, stuff like this. So this is fine, but let's say if you want to do random rotation. So what happens is the orient along curve generates a normal and an up vector. So we can use the normal to do randomization. So what you do is type in vector. So take attributed just vector, change this to normal, and it's set to add, which is great. And what we want to do is set this to random. Okay, so it will do this, but what I want is I just want to affect the X and Z and not the Y. So turn on this XYZ value and make this 0. Okay, and then set the range to 0 centered. Okay, so now if I increase the amplitude, see, so now we are doing random rotation as it sort of flows along. You can also set this to noise if you want, and we can adjust this. So you can do, stuff like this, which is easier. So I said the idea with this is you can do all of this through wrangle nodes as well. Like you can generate normals and make modifications, or you can just randomize orient. But orient for me has always been a little weird. Like I don't always get it. So this is easier. Now as a final thing, and that will apply to this as well, is how can you do non-uniform scale? Okay, now the default non-uniform scale is the attribute is called scale. So p scale is uniform scale and scale is non-uniform. So scale is a vector. So let's do one thing. Let's just take this over here to this guy. Yeah, so we have like, no, let's bring it back. Let's take the grid back over here. Yeah, okay. So this is good. Let's take, yeah, I just want to adjust the scale value here. Yeah, and maybe like lower the, yeah, okay, this is fine. And maybe lower the mountain top. Yeah, so let's say I want to give this like non-uniform scaling. Okay, so what you can do is just type in vector. So attributed just vector, and type in scale, like up here, the name will be scale, and it will just disappear. Okay, so you can do set always. And then if I set this to 1 and 1 and 1, see, so you can now, see now I'm adjusting x-axis and, y-axis and z-axis. I think we can do this before this as well, and it might work over there too. Yeah, like either ways is fine. Okay. Now you can also randomize it. So I can set it to random. Okay, so it's now sort of like, going random. But let's say if you want to affect only one axis, so then you can use like 2 or 3 nodes. Okay, so what I can do is I can set this to constant, and these all will be 1. Okay, so now that we have set like the default values here, I'll take another attributed just vector, and this one, let's say we only want to affect the y-axis. So I'll type in scale again, and now we can just see, we can just add to y. I'll set this, let's say we set this to random, and I'll set this to minimum maximum. Okay, so now we are affecting like, all 3. But what I can do is, let's say this is 0. And yeah, so now what's going to happen is if I adjust this, see, so now I'm only affecting y-axis. Okay, and here again, I'll set this to 1. See, so I'm only affecting y. Here the problem is if I make this 0, it just goes flat like that. So we set the default value, and then we use, like, you can adjust like 2 or 3 nodes. So I can like duplicate this. Let's say we'll call this scale Y, and I can call this, let's say, scale X. And so this one, I'll set this to 1 and 1 and 0. See, so now you are affecting the x-axis. So this way we can then control, you know, the non-uniform scale as well. Yeah, so those are the 2 ways to, you know, copy objects on points, and then the different attributes or the different ways you can sort of control scaling and rotation. Okay, so I hope this will be useful, and see you in the next tutorial.